seeds of fury, how a broken treaty ignited the world. The aftermath of World War I left Europe in a state of disarray, with nations grappling to rebuild and recover from the unprecedented devastation. World War I, the war to end all wars, they called it. Millions of lives lost, empires shattered, and yet the hope was that such a catastrophe would never occur again. What a cruel joke. The Treaty of Versailles, meant to ensure peace, instead planted the seeds for an even greater conflict. The treaty imposed harsh penalties and reparations on Germany, creating a sense of betrayal and injustice among its people. Germany, humiliated and economically devastated, became fertile ground for extremism. The Weimar Republic struggled to maintain stability as hyperinflation and unemployment soared, leaving the German populace desperate and disillusioned. Resentment festered. Enter Adolf Hitler, a charismatic monster who channeled that anger into a toxic ideology. He exploited the nation's suffering, promising a return to greatness and a scapegoat for their woes. He promised to restore Germany to its former glory, to avenge the wrongs inflicted upon it. His rhetoric was filled with promises of economic revival, national pride, and territorial expansion. His words, laced with hate and delusion, resonated with a desperate population. The Nazi propaganda machine worked tirelessly to spread his message, manipulating public opinion and stoking the fires of nationalism. The Nazi Party, a viper's nest of hate and violence, rose to power. They capitalized on the chaos and discontent, using fear and intimidation to silence opposition and consolidate their control. The world, weary from war, chose to appease Hitler's growing aggression. Leaders like Neville Chamberlain believed that by conceding to some of Hitler's demands, they could avoid another devastating conflict. They underestimated his ambition, his ruthlessness. Hitler's vision was not limited to reclaiming lost territories. He sought to dominate Europe and beyond. They turned a blind eye as he rebuilt the German military, violating the Treaty of Versailles with impunity. Factories that once produced civilian goods were now churning out weapons of war. This was a fatal error, one the world would pay for in blood. The unchecked rearmament and militarization of Germany set the stage for a conflict of unimaginable scale. By 1939, the stage was set for another global conflict. Hitler's aggressive policies and expansionist ambitions had pushed Europe to the brink. Hitler, emboldened by years of unchecked aggression, invaded Poland. This blatant act of war shattered any remaining illusions of peace and forced the world to confront the Nazi threat head-on. The world, finally realizing the danger he posed, could no longer ignore the Nazi threat. Allied nations began to mobilize their forces, preparing for the inevitable clash. World War II had begun. The conflict that ensued would engulf the globe, bringing unprecedented destruction and reshaping the course of history forever. The rise of monsters, Hitler's grip, and the Nazi terror machine. The world had never seen such a meticulously orchestrated campaign of terror and control. Hitler's rise to power was not just a political shift, it was the beginning of a dark era that would engulf millions in unimaginable suffering. Hitler's Germany was a nightmare made real. The streets, once bustling with life, now echoed with the heavy boots of Nazi soldiers and the omnipresent symbols of hate. Propaganda was everywhere, seeping into every aspect of daily life, ensuring that the Nazi ideology was inescapable. The Nazi Party, with its twisted ideology of Aryan supremacy and racial purity, unleashed a reign of terror. Their vision of a pure race led to the systematic dehumanization and extermination of those they deemed inferior. This ideology was not just a belief, but a driving force that justified their heinous actions. Jews, Roma, homosexuals, the disabled, anyone deemed undesirable, became targets of persecution. Families were torn apart, lives were destroyed, and entire communities were erased from existence. The Nazis' relentless pursuit of their racial policies left a trail of devastation and despair. The SS, Hitler's brutal enforcers, spread fear and violence. These men, indoctrinated with Nazi ideology, carried out their orders with ruthless efficiency. They were the embodiment of the regime's cruelty, ensuring that dissent was crushed and that the Nazi grip on power remained unchallenged. Concentration camps, those factories of death, sprang up across Europe, swallowing millions of innocent souls. These camps were designed for one purpose: to exterminate. The conditions were inhumane, the treatment barbaric, and the death toll staggering. Each camp was a testament to the depths of human cruelty. The Holocaust, a systematic campaign of genocide, stands as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. The sheer scale of the atrocities committed is almost incomprehensible. 6 million Jews, along with countless others, were murdered in cold blood. The world would forever be scarred by this dark chapter in history, but the horror wasn't confined to Germany. The Nazi war machine rolled across Europe, leaving destruction in its wake. Cities were occupied, culture suppressed, and freedom stripped away. The reach of Nazi terror extended far beyond the borders of Germany, affecting millions more. Across Europe, collaborators, seduced by power or driven by fear, enabled the Nazi war machine. These individuals, whether out of self-preservation or ideological alignment, played a crucial role in the Nazis' ability to maintain control. Their actions contributed to the widespread suffering and loss of life. They became complicit in the atrocities, their hands stained with the blood of innocents. The betrayal by their own countrymen added another layer of horror to the already nightmarish reality. Trust was shattered, and communities were left in ruins. The world watched in horror as the Nazi cancer spread, consuming nation after nation. The speed and ferocity of the Nazi invasions left little time for resistance. Civilians were forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge from the advancing terror. The global community was left grappling with the enormity of the threat. The question was, could this evil be stopped before it consumed all of humanity? The Allies, recognizing the dire threat posed by the Nazis, mobilized their forces. Resistance fighters emerged, risking everything to combat the tyranny. The fate of the world hung in the balance as the forces of good prepared to confront the embodiment of evil. A lion's roar, Churchill, Britain, and the fight for survival. In Britain, one man stood defiant, Winston Churchill. His indomitable spirit and unyielding resolve became the cornerstone of Britain's resistance at a time when the world was shrouded in the darkness of war. Churchill's voice emerged as a beacon of hope and resilience. While others cowered, Churchill rallied his nation to fight. His speeches were not just words, they were calls to action, stirring the hearts of millions. He understood the power of unity and the strength that came from a nation standing together against a common enemy. He knew the stakes, the terrible price of appeasement. The Munich Agreement of 1938 had shown the world the dangers of yielding to tyranny. Churchill, with his keen insight and foresight, warned against the perils of compromising with evil. He was a lone voice in the wilderness, but his message was clear and unwavering. "We shall fight on the beaches," he roared. "We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." And fight they did. These words became a rallying cry, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of the British people. They were prepared to defend their homeland at all costs, inspired by Churchill's unshakable determination. The Battle of Britain, a relentless aerial assault by the Luftwaffe, tested the limits of British resolve. Day after day, night after night, the skies over Britain were filled with the roar of engines and the thunder of explosions. The British people endured, their courage and fortitude shining through the darkest hours. But the Royal Air Force, outnumbered but undaunted, fought back with courage and tenacity. These brave pilots, often referred to as the Few, took to the skies with a fierce determination to protect their homeland. Their skill and bravery turned the tide of the battle, proving that even the mightiest of foes could be defeated. The skies above England became a graveyard for Nazi bombers. The relentless efforts of the RAF ensured that the Luftwaffe's losses were devastating. Each downed enemy plane was a symbol of resistance, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the British people and their defenders. Churchill's leadership, his unwavering belief in victory, gave hope to a world teetering on the brink. His presence among the troops, his visits to the bombed-out cities, and his radio broadcasts brought comfort and reassurance. He was not just a leader, he was a symbol of resilience and hope. He became a symbol of resistance, a beacon of defiance against the Nazi onslaught. His speeches, filled with passion and conviction, inspired not only the British people, but also the entire free world. Churchill's words were a clarion call to all who cherish freedom and democracy. His words, his spirit, helped to rally the free world to the cause. The alliance of nations that stood against the Axis powers drew strength from Churchill's unwavering resolve. His leadership was instrumental in forging the unity and determination needed to overcome the greatest threat the world had ever faced. Through his efforts, the free world found the courage to stand firm and ultimately triumph. Section 4. Turning the tide from D-Day's beaches to Stalingrad's rubble, the tide began to turn. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, France. D-Day, a daring gamble, marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. Millions of soldiers, Americans, British, Canadians, and more poured into Europe, pushing back the Nazi war machine. In the East, the Soviet Union, led by the ruthless Joseph Stalin, engaged in a brutal struggle for survival. The Battle of Stalingrad, a grinding, merciless fight, became a turning point in the war. The Red Army, at a terrible cost, broke the back of the German military. The fighting was fierce, the losses staggering, but slowly and inexorably, the Allies pushed back the Nazi tide. Victory, though still a distant hope, became a possibility. The world held its breath, praying for the nightmare to end. Section 5. America's entrance, a sleeping giant awakens, but at what cost? The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 shattered America's isolationism. The sleeping giant awakened, unleashing its industrial and military might upon the Axis powers. The United States, its vast resources mobilized, became the arsenal of democracy. American soldiers, sailors, and airmen fought with courage and determination across the globe. From the beaches of Iwo Jima to the skies over Europe, they sacrificed their lives to defeat tyranny. The cost of victory, however, was high.